Hello everybody, Mike here with Boreal Sky Photography, and I have some unfortunate news. DSLRs are finally dead. At least that's what the camera manufacturers want you to think, and that seems to be the direction a lot of people are leaning these days, is that mirrorless is the way to go. Over a year ago, I actually sold my mirrorless kit and went back to shooting DSLRs. This is a D800 released in 2012. It has 90,000 clicks on it. It still works fantastically. This D850 from 2017 has given me some absolutely fantastic pictures. So why do they say they're dead? Well, because they want you to buy the latest and greatest. I have no issues shooting a camera that is 12 years old and puts out a measly 4 frames per second or 7 frames per second for the D850, and I totally struggle to shoot birds in flight and wildlife with 7 frames per second when I still shoot wildlife with the D800 and it's 4 frames per second. And guess what? They are both fantastic landscape bodies. Now, why would I decide to go back to DSLRs? A lot of that is personal preference. For me, I like the view through an optical viewfinder far better than I liked the view through a electronic viewfinder. For me, it's far clearer, and I don't get a headache looking through an optical viewfinder like I did looking at an LCD screen an inch from my eye. I understand not everybody's going to have that. And if you already watch or if you already shoot mirrorless, then by all means continue to shoot mirrorless. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you shoot DSLRs, I don't see any reason to upgrade. You already know how to read your meter. You already know how to read your histogram. And if you shoot RAW, you still have additional exposure latitude. So be over the JPEG histogram that is in your camera. So you don't really have any reason to go mirrorless, because what you see is what you get only really applies to JPEGs. And I do understand the appeal of it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that it only really applies to JPEGs straight out of camera. And I shoot RAW, and I know most people shoot RAW so that they can actually make sure everything is true to what they saw or to their creative vision. And if you are buying a first camera, then I would say DSLRs are the only way you should consider going. And understand there's other factors that are going to come into play, but for most people, a DSLR is what is going to actually teach you the art of photography. It's going to teach you how to expose properly, rather than it just showing you that you are properly exposed. You are going to actually have to learn the shutter speeds, the aperture, the ISO you need, whether you can get away shooting at base ISO, or whether you should take that ISO up a lot. And I find that incredibly useful as a beginner, and I've been shooting since the 90s when I was shooting a Pentax SLR. As a kid, so for me, looking off a mirror makes far more sense. And I do understand that someday I'm going to have to go mirrorless. There won't be any functional DSLRs left, most likely. But that day is not today. I sold my mirrorless bodies because they took the fun out of photography for me. I do sell photographs, but I don't sell enough to consider myself a full professional photographer. It's one of those things that I'm not making a full living off of it. Why should I have the latest and greatest equipment when I can still make a large print with the 36 megapixel D800 that you can get for well under $1,000 these days? You can get them in good condition for $500. That leaves you a lot of room in your budget if you're planning to buy a newer mirrorless camera to buy good glass. Which is another reason that I still think DSLRs are far superior, is the glass that you can get. There are decades of glass for most of the DSLR mounts. I mean, because a lot of them are compatible with the old film lenses. Like I actually have on this D800, this is an old AF Nikkor D drive that is actually from the 90s. So it's a D lens. Is it the sharpest? No. Does it work? Yes. And that's my backup body. But the point of that is you can get lenses that are older. You can get decades of lenses to use. Some of them are still fantastically sharp, and for me, that lens is sharp enough for a lot of things, especially if I'm cropping. So by purchasing older, you can have a much larger room in your budget to buy lenses if you're just starting out. If you already do shoot with a DSLR, keep shooting them, because if you switch, you have to take into account the loss you're taking selling your equipment, the cost of switching lenses. And yes, like if you're shooting Nikon, yes, the F to Z is a fantastic adapter, but that's still an additional expense. And if you're shooting multiple bodies, then you're going to need more than one F to Z if you're using F-mount glass, which is something to consider. And there's nothing wrong with mirrorless. If you are determined to go that way, by all means go that way, because they will produce fine results. But so will DSLRs. I am perfectly happy not seeing the exposure go up and down in the viewfinder, or not having a histogram in the viewfinder. I have the light meter. I know how my aperture works. I know how my ISO works. I know how my shutter speed comes into effect. And I honestly don't feel the need to switch back to mirrorless. In fact, the easiest sale I ever made was selling my Sony. I had no attachment to those bodies. They were the most boring cameras I ever used because of all the electronics on there. And the battery life was terrible. I had to carry multiple batteries for one day of shooting. Whereas I can run a battery in my D850 shooting wildlife, in which case I usually have a battery grip on there because I am shooting bursts. I rarely get through the battery that's in the grip, let alone the battery that's in the actual camera, because the life is that much better. And okay, I understand, it's not a problem to throw some extra batteries into your bag. In fact, I do, just because of convenience. And if it's multiple days out, yeah, I want batteries to back up just in case I need them. But there's no reason that I should have to carry several batteries for several cameras, or for one camera, when I've got several batteries for two cameras, and most of the time they're just getting alternated because I eventually kill a battery after a few days of shooting. That's mostly just my opinions here, and you can feel absolutely free to disregard what I'm saying. At first, I really liked the idea of mirrorless. I really liked it. And then it hit a point where I wanted to like it. And then it hit a point where I just said, I don't want it anymore, I'm selling. And I had no regrets seeing that camera walk out the door for a fraction of what I bought it for. I just picked up DSLRs, was happy, and just kind of wanted to reinforce that I don't think DSLRs are a bad investment. I don't think they're actually going anywhere. I think Pentax is probably going to be the only manufacturer, at least for a while. Maybe some of the companies will make another one in the future. Not sure. But especially if you are a new photographer, go with the DSLR. You won't regret it. And if you do, I'll eat my hat. But it's, I will eat my words if you do regret buying a DSLR that's in good condition. And you can probably go to a camera shop and check them out. You can look online and find them. In fact, that's a great place to look, is local classifieds sites like Kijiji or Marketplace or Camera shops frequently have them. I know if you go to Don's Photography up here, or Don's Camera, or Photo, they have a section that's cameras that they're holding on consignment. And a lot of them are in really nice condition. And there are a lot of DSLRs in there that are perfectly fine. And you're going to find that with a lot of camera shops, is that they're selling used DSLRs in a section of the store. So I would suggest giving that a look over and see what you can find for lenses, because if you're selling your if you're buying a DSLR over a mirrorless, you're likely to save a lot of money. Use that money that you saved to put towards good glass. And you can find used lenses too. Just make sure that it doesn't have any fungus, it doesn't have any electrical problems, it doesn't have any autofocus issues unless it is a manual focus lens. The aperture works. And that there's no drops or scratches or anything. And yes, you do have to check your lenses on a DSLR for front and back focusing. That's easy enough to do. 90% of the time, you're going to be fine. If you're finding that your lens is front or back focusing consistently, go in and just give it an adjustment, and you'll be fine. That is one advantage that mirrorless has, but you can also get around that by manually focusing or using live view. And while they're slower, that's going to solve that issue if you're not able to fix that. But I think that's enough said. This was really just a massive rant. If you want to disregard this, I have no issue with that, because this was literally just me rambling about why I think DSLRs are relevant. Shoot what you want, shoot what you have, enjoy it. Get out, take some pictures, and I'll see you next time.